Free us from the shackles of partisan politics, political correctness, and personal egos and agendas. Deliver us from evil and lead them not into all of the temptations and intoxications that shall abound. O God, O God, O God, O God, O God, end the civil wars and usher in a new Reconstruction era that builds upon the many successes and achievements of yesterday while proclaiming the beginning of a new beginning. Let the plantation called New York City be the city of God, a city set upon the hill, a light shining in darkness.
All right, folks, there you go. We played that earlier, but I wanted to play it again as we welcome in our friend John Funn, national affairs columnist for National Review Online, senior editor at American Spectator, Newsmax contributor, all of that. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good. Yeah, first time in 2014.
We got quite a beginning.
Wow.
Yesterday. That was a wake-up call.
That was a wake-up call because they were unabashed. They were in your face, we should point out. That was Reverend Fred Lucas Jr. He's the Department of Sanitation in New York City's chaplain. Who knew that the Department of Sanitation had a chaplain, right?
Well, I knew it's a dirty job. I didn't know that it needed redemption.
Well, I didn't know we were a plantation in New York City.
Well, in a speech that was only 3 minutes long, he managed to get in 9 references to slavery.
What we saw yesterday, and I talked about this at the top of the show, Bill Clinton, politically speaking, we can put that aside. He was there with Hillary to gain the connection to this radical left wing of the Democratic Party.
Because the thing that Hillary worries most about is a challenge from the left.
Right.
Whether it's from Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts or Jerry Brown in California or Governor O'Malley in Maryland. She worries because of her vote on the Iraq War and the fact that Clinton, shall we say, was... well, I can swing both ways ideologically kind of president. She worries about that the most. So hooking up with de Blasio, who was her first campaign manager until she fired him, that's all forgiven. Hooking up with de Blasio is her protection on the left flank.
But we saw, first of all, it was an embarrassment that Clinton himself had to rectify. They took swipes at everything Bloomberg had accomplished and stood for, and then Clinton came up near the end and said, by the way, the man who's sitting there, I want to thank Mayor Bloomberg. He left the city a better place than when he started. Silence. But he had to get that in because they were trashing everything about this city. We are an apartheid city, according to what I heard from them.
These are the people who call for civility in politics until they're in charge, and then, well, it's dump all over you.
Now, we had a Farrakhan supporter up there, right behind the Reverend.
The Muslim minister from the Department of Corrections. He's a Farrakhan supporter.
He's the minister of the Department of Corrections.
Well, it is true that many people in our prison systems have converted to Islam, but they haven't converted to Louis Farrakhanism. Well,
that's what I was going to say. Islam is a little different than Louis Farrakhan. And, of course, Harry Belafonte, who I thought would have been much better off doing Deo, because what he wound up spewing was the garbage we're used to hearing him spew, this hateful vengeance against America, in this case against New York City and the cops and everything.
This is the man who compared the 9/11 tragedy to terrorism, but not the terrorism of the attackers, but the terrorism of the American government. And for a mayor of New York to have him give the keynote address when he has said that America is a terrorist nation, unbelievable.
Well, I mean, it's an obvious question, but you wrote a great piece at the National Review Online. Bill in the China shop, we won't wait, we'll do it now. And, I mean, what does it say, first of all, about de Blasio? I mean, he's really revealing who he is. He ran as who he is, unlike Obama. He won overwhelmingly because with lowest voter turnout in New York City history, or at least in 50 years. And now he's not ashamed to show exactly what he is.
I disagree that he ran on what he really believes. What he really believes is in democratic socialism. He described himself as that before he entered the Clinton administration and had to mainstream himself in the 1990s. His biggest supporters were Acorn. That's the scandal-ridden group that had to go bankrupt, but is now being reborn under new mismanagement. The former national head of Acorn was on the dais during his inauguration. She was one of the few people invited to watch him being sworn in at midnight.
Right, that was the official one.
Ceremony.
Yeah.
Unbelievably left-wing. So what we actually saw was the tip of the left-wing iceberg.
What do you think he could realistically do to New York City? And now they're saying, I heard this cockamamie, don't worry, rich people, I'm going to tax you, but it's going to be about the cost of a couple of lattes a day. You know,
I already have spoken to one guy earning $200,000 a year who's leaving the city. He said, I'm not going to go back to the days of David Dinkins.
Well, that's it. Oh, they praised Dinkins also yesterday.
Who was such a successful mayor.
That's what I mean. 2,000 murders.
The point is, people are going to start to leave New York City. People who thought about coming to New York aren't going to come to New York, but you will never know who their names.
Right, because they're not coming.
You can't prove that they didn't come. Yeah. And the bottom line is, his initiatives require a much bigger tax increase than what he's saying. Remember the old saying, you know, everybody who says, I'm only taxing the rich.
Right.
You know, they have very bad aim.
Yes.
And eventually they're going to tax you.
Absolutely. And their definition of rich. I mean, you know.
Well, we all know Barack Obama.
That's right.
If you make over $250,000, we'll tax you below. But Obamacare itself, which affects everyone, has 37 different new taxes in it.
Absolutely. We're talking to John Fund here on the Steve Malzberg Show. All right, let's talk about elections, and let's talk about what they found in New York City. The Department of Investigation. You wrote a great piece also at National Review about the investigators who did this investigation, which is what investigators do, were able to obtain fraudulent ballots almost every time.
James O'Keefe pioneered this.
Yep, great man.
He managed to get Eric Holder's ballot by sending in a 22-year-old white kid with a beard and earrings. And he didn't even say he was Eric Holder. He just said, do you have Eric Holder's?
And they gave it to him.
Yeah. He didn't vote it, but, you know, he showed how easy it is to commit voter fraud. He did the same thing in New Hampshire, North Carolina, other states. Now we have the Department of Investigations doing a similar sting officially with undercover agents. They went in and they pretended they were either dead, felons, or people who had moved out of state and no longer eligible. Out of 63 tries, 61 succeeded. 39 dead people whose names were on the rolls, they voted in their names for fictitious candidates, so it didn't count. 8 who were out of state. The rest were felons and who are currently in jail. This shows you how easy it is to commit voter fraud. 97% success rate. Now, the Board of Elections says, well, we have to change a few things. No, you have to. We need photo ID. We need absentee ballot security. We need a whole bunch of things. But you know what? Who's the new mayor? Bill de Blasio. Who is the biggest supporter of Bill de Blasio? Acorn. Bertha Lewis.
Right.
Now, Acorn was in charge of voter fraud for many states in 2008. I mean, their employees were convicted in over a dozen states. They themselves were convicted in the state of Nevada. And you think Bill de Blasio is going to be interested in voter fraud suppression?
No,
I don't think so.
Not.
He is going to be in favor of voter fraud enhancement.
Voter fraud enhancement.
Anything,
run on that plan. And, of course, Al Sharpton and the like will tell you there is no voter fraud in America. Show me one case, you know.
Well, you know,
and you wrote the book on voter fraud.
The one thing that's interesting is this is the only crime I know where we supposedly judge how much crime there is by how many prosecutions there are.
Right.
You know, if you go to the Securities and Exchange Commission, you say, how much insider trading is there? Fraud.
Right.
And they'll say, well, we had 57 prosecutions. Does that mean there are only 57 people who did it?
Right.
No, of course not.
Right.
If you go to the IRS and say, how many people committed tax fraud, and they tell you how many prosecutions, does that mean how many tax fraudsters there are? No, of course not. The point is it's almost impossible to catch this, because if you go in and you don't ask for ID, you can vote in the name of a dead person. Will they complain? No. If you're in jail and you vote in their name, are they going to complain? No. If you're out of state and you won't go vote for them, are they going to complain? No. The point is we don't know how much fraud there is because you can't detect it.
No, right. And here's the thing. I mean, of course, de Blasio has no interest, not only because of the Acorn connection, but this fundamental fallacy that demanding a photo ID is somehow racist is just
75% of African Americans and Hispanics want it.
Yeah.
And you know what? If there are a few people out there who don't have an ID, I say let's do them the favor and get them one. How in the world can you be part of the mainstream of American life without an ID? You can't
go
travel,
to a bank,
can't cash a check, can't get welfare, can't get Medicaid, can't get Medicare.
It's racist to not give them a photo ID, just about, right? To keep
just
them,
about.
Yeah.
Because then you keep them dependent and easily led, I guess.
You think so? All right. Speaking of dependent and easily led, are you encouraged by Sonia Sotomayor's temporary stay until tomorrow giving the government a chance to respond?
You know, I'm glad to see she hasn't forgotten what the nuns taught her in a few things.
That is interesting, isn't it? She went to a Catholic school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and here in the New York area. John Fund, always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Thank you. And the
very
article
much.
on de Blasio is at nationalreview.com.
Yes, and as is the report on the voter fraud.
Very good.
I want to get Al Sharpton. You and Al Sharpton in the same studio, and he could tell you there are no.
I've been on with Al, and Al is a great rogue. He'll wink at you when he talks like that. He'll just wink at you.
All right,
he knows the score.
John Fund, ladies and gentlemen, Newsmax contributor, National Review Online senior editor, and American Spectator, senior editor, American Spectator, online contributor, National. I got it right. National Affairs columnist at National Review.
Town.
You see this too much. I told you. Wall Street Journal, Newsmax, you name it, he's all over. John Fund. All right, folks. In just a few minutes, we're going to come back and we're going to let you hear some sound bites. Sound bites from MSNBC, so right away you know there's a problem, and right away you could guess what that problem involves. And it's once again Melissa Harris Perry, and she caused quite a firestorm with remarks that she and her panel made about a family picture, a family portrait involving the Romney family. So we'll talk more about that when we come back right here. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.